Call to order. Regular meeting.
Peace to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gordon. Here. Mr. Fernandez. Here. Mr. Grady. Here. Mr. McNair. Here. Mr. Miller. Here. Mr. Paradis. Here. You have a quorum.
Start with the audience of citizens. Yeah, I have a couple of items that you guys will deal with. Bear with me. The first item is this past Monday, early morning. Some folks tried to take my cars and the alarms went off. 2 o'clock in the morning. I called dispatch. Who showed up. I appreciate that. It's you guys get to Facebook posts about what you guys doing or a letter or something, but never in this setting. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the team you guys put together.
Thank you.
The second item, also on the same day, everything happened on Monday. We had a meeting upstairs. I think by lack of my judgment, I interrupted you, Sal, when you asked me a question. That is not the way we operate. I know you and I have followed up on Brian, discussed it, but it's still my mistake. I like to own up to my mistakes. So I like to apologize to him once again and to the board and to the people involved. That is not who we are as a board. We're always giving each other the respect and the time to ask the questions. Thank you.
Appreciate that, and you said we're a team. Yeah, it's all good, brother. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, is anybody else online who would like to speak?
Yes, if that is all right.
Okay,
Hi, Peter Zarabozo, 158 Elwood Road. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but as you know, I am on the Board of Education, but I am speaking as a taxpayer primarily. I wanted to bring up a couple issues. I was invited here by Mr. Grady. So he had asked me about the Board of Education and what potential things we were looking at. So in my personal view, some of the things we are looking at in terms of budget mitigation. Typically, you may remember last year, we faced that crossroads of dealing with middle school sports, which is about $120K cut. And then, the town council and with your aid, we secured that, and that was greatly appreciated. So these kind of things always circulate and come around because 82% of our budget is labor related. We are primarily looking at elementary cuts. If so, based on decreased tuition, based on potential decreased enrollment moving forward. Additionally, I have reached out to our Ashley Dorsey to inquire about what a potential wage freeze may look like in terms of non-bargaining members, such as the unaffiliated employees that we have, should we have to go that route. We could also, explore contracted wage freezes, but that opens a whole can of worms, looks very bad, and probably would not even survive an arbitration challenge. So, but to get those numbers would be valuable because we don't quite know what we're dealing with. With that said, those are my personal thoughts. Along with the administration, they have not quite presented. We've not met as a F&O committee to bring together a formal proposal yet, because we also don't have the number that you're going to provide us. So moving away from that, as a taxpayer, I do want to talk on a couple other issues. One primarily being the VNA. I think that we have circled the wagons on the VNA for many years here. I think we went from a position of trying to generate revenue and realizing that was never going to happen. So we made drastic cuts to the VNA. The revenue continues to drop. I don't think the VNA is ever going to be revenue positive. I don't think a public-private partnership is going to solve the issue. So our options are limited. Additionally, even with the issue of the VNA, we also have to consider Department 61 and the school nurses, because they fall under that too, and how we're going to mitigate that moving forward. Thirdly, Mr. Millard brought up an issue at the last meeting regarding playgrounds. I agree with Mr. Millard. I do think that the playgrounds need some serious upgrading. Little People's is absolutely phenomenal. Families, parents, kids, they go there nonstop. So that was a great allocation of funds. But in terms of which ones really need attention, I think Worthington Ridge needs to be on the list when and if that happens, because with the upgrade in Kensington with the Little People's and the future upgrade of the splash pad in East Berlin, it needs to be something centrally located for families and kids to utilize. Lastly, I do want to comment on one of the additions to the police budget. I believe that is some type of administrator to facilitate increased FOIA requests. That's an absolutely critical need. FOIA requests, especially with the increase of our police officers. It is a lot of work for an administrator to censor those films and issue them out to the public or the press. And plus, there's a lot of pressing information that the public may want to know. Personally, I have made FOIA requests in other cities, in our own town, involving elected officials and harassing town employees unnecessarily. I mean, these are things that the public wants to see and wants to know, because, everyone should be held accountable to their position. And the people need transparency. So that is something that I do think you guys should include in the budget. So thank you for your time. And Mr. Grady, thank you for your invite. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. All right, so, Chief, you want to talk a little about?
Yeah, so I tried to anticipate questions. ahead of time. What I did was I put together a little booklet that I finished today. And it's in sections. The first section deals with this thing increase. Sorry,
You're not gonna go through every page, right?
well, but it's basically my position and our department's philosophy and position on what I anticipate some of your questions. I'm sure it's not going to cover all your questions. And, because we talk here tonight, and we don't have hours and hours, because I know we're doing this every night. Rob's got some stuff to hand out too. And but basically, so when you're deliberating, you could look back and see some of the information. Okay. And if the order was nothing particular, I just picked the order thinking about highest to lowest in thought value. The sections in the my handout, and you're getting handout from Lieutenant Martin, also with respect to some of the information about staffing needs. I have a section on a justification for additional personnel staffing, the FOIA position, which the Paula just talked about. There's a section in here. About flock safety camera system that's in our request. And then there's some miscellaneous information. I was told you wanted to see the fleet information, and I have a statement at the end about alternative funding, which for budgets in the future, and maybe some ideas that we might be interested in pursuing to help reduce the police budget request in years to come.
So if I could just take a second, since we were already talking about FOI stuff, I brought this with me. I didn't know if it would come up or not, but since it did come up, thought I would just, first of all, we understand that you guys have a very difficult job to do. It's a tough budget year, and we understand that there's a lot of pressure to come up with a good budget. So a couple of things that did come up was the position that we were looking for. It's basically a FOIA position. It would be multi-use within the police department, but it was a part-time position. And what we find is that we have a lot of certified police officers, like lieutenant, now a sergeant, and our clerical staff, and some of our officers that have to get involved in these FOIA requests. This one came in recently. This is just one FOIA request. I thought I'd just read this to you, if you don't mind. So this is one FOIA request we got from a minor rear end motor vehicle accident. In accordance with all applicable statutes, I'm requesting the following records. All reports, including all supplemental reports pertaining to this case. All body worn, all dashboard camera footage related to the case. All emergency dispatch, police, fire, ambulance reports, audio clips, phone recordings pertaining to this case. All text messages and voicemails for a particular officer or any other officer or supervisor in the Berlin Police Department that was at this case. All training records related to officer, this particular officer, any supervisor, or any officer that was at the scene of this accident. And training records related to cultural diversity, interacting with individuals from various backgrounds, interacting with senior citizens. Training regarding motor vehicle license seizures specifically related to the elderly medical condition, bias-based policing, implicit bias policing. All pass the same discipline for this particular officer or any other officer or supervisor at the scene. All complaints and investigations filed against this officer or any supervisor or officer at the scene. Daily roll call, schedules for this officer, any other officers or supervisor that was at that scene. All Berlin Police Department's policies, procedures, general orders, training bulletins, etc., pertaining to accidents and taking an individual driver's license for medical purposes. Any Berlin Police Department policies, procedures, general orders, training bulletins related to the use of interpreters, interpreting services. Any document of interpreters utilized by the Berlin Police Department, both internally and externally. And there's a couple other requests he makes. So, just an example, and I read that as fast as I could. This is the kind of stuff we've been getting. And this particular request took probably 4 days to fill, and 3 officers and 2 people from the clerical staff to gather all this together. So, and I think the town hall is probably faced at times with similar FOI complaints.
Not like that, but.
Yeah, they're
That's
pretty
very common for
involved
us.
when we get them, and that's just a minor rear end
Yeah.
crash. And every video we have, there might have been 4 officers at that scene. You have 4 body camera for whatever, an hour, hour and a half. You have car camera video for an hour and a half. All of that has to be reviewed for any redacted properties that it might have. And then if there's anything that needs to be redacted, you're talking hours and hours of redaction time. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know, is there anything in the statutes, not that it helps you personnel wise, but is there anything in the statutes that allows us to bill them back for our time?
Yeah, it's a minor fee. Basically, we charge them $10 for a CD drive, but
But not the
we're
time
constrained by law for what you can charge them, unfortunately. I mean, you can't charge them for your time. It would be run into the hundreds of dollars and.
The Connecticut Chiefs Police Association, through its lobbyists at the state legislature right now in the long session, have been really pushing, just like they did last year before the session ended, to have our state legislators look at the actual cost that it's costing municipalities, not just law enforcement, but law enforcement's getting killed, but municipalities too. But all these, some of these are just fishing expeditions, and they're just looking for any information. We have one that's downstairs that you don't have, where they're asking for going back 6 years on all body cam footage, but they don't tell you, they don't have to tell you why. So they're just saying, we want to know about all the body cam footage, all the department camera footage, your cell block footage. Luckily, we don't keep a lot of people in our cell blocks in Connecticut anymore, but stuff like that. They want all that footage. And that's a law firm. And they've sent it to multiple agencies, almost every police department in the southern part of the state. And, you know, our Chiefs Police Association is saying, hey, these are like killing us because it takes our people off the road to do all this research. It's not uncommon, like that one he just read, there'll be a couple 100 pages plus all the video footage. And all you get is $10 for the cost of the disc or the thumb drive. And
Looks
that's
like, I think
something
it's
we
50
can talk about.
cents per copy.
Yeah.
Per page.
Just-
Are other police departments in different municipalities using a part-time or even a full-time person to do?
Yeah, so the bigger agencies are looking, one of the reasons why is because realistically, civilians cost less than your police officers. We keep your trained officers out on the road. So a lot of agencies have either tried to put this in, have them already, or are in the process of doing that now. Because after the past 2 legislative sessions where we didn't get any relief, we're not confident that we're gonna see relief this time either.
Are we actually tracking the hours that we're spending doing this? I mean, is there a number you can say this month we used this much time to do FOI work?
That
We're
would
not
be hard
really-
to do,
We're not
because
really tracking it because
Yeah.
there's no, engine in place to collect anything back from it. And so, I mean, we know the amount of time it takes, but we don't really track it to the minute because there's really nothing we can do with that data,
so
unfortunately.
like the clerk of records in between calls, would, you know, maybe they're doing something, somebody asks for an action report, somebody comes to the window, here's my FOI. They get it, they start processing it, they bring it to my secretary, she's keeping a log, our log's about an average of about 8 or 9 a month now. 3.5 years ago when I got here, it was like 3 or 4 a month. So we're seeing an uptick in that. And the information they're requesting is much more. You know, it used to be, well, I need a copy of the report and I want to see the camera footage. But now, you know, it's an industry.
There was a period of time when we did collect that data for a while, and I think, our administrative officer was collecting that and putting it in the monthly report, but I think we kind of got away from doing that just because the data wasn't really being used for anything, so we kind of stopped tracking it. So I think we did it for last year's budget. I think we
Well, last year we were looking for this position, but we withdrew it at the first night, I believe it was, when Roche was the town manager, because he didn't think that was gonna go. So,
One other thing I'd like to mention is that in our capital request, one of the things requested in that capital request was a pickup truck that was submitted by Chief Simons. And we had an opportunity to use some existing funds to purchase those 2 vehicles that were declined by another police department. That's Tasca Ford. And so Chief Simons called me and he said, I know this is exactly what you're looking for. And he bought one of them and we bought the other one because it was just such a substantial savings to the town. I think we figured out we saved around $18,000 because it was a past year pickup that nobody had asked for. So so that request is moved at this point.
Is it gone from the request now? Yeah.
I don't think it has been. We just did that recently, so I'm not sure that that's actually been dropped from that.
So this position is to relieve the pressure of the officers that are working on this, right?
Correct. Particularly for redaction, video.
We'd have to train the person in the position specific to our needs.
It would probably be like a retired police officer that understands the video when they watch it and what needs to be redacted.
And they got, you know, there's classes that they have for people, CCM offers them, the police academy offers classes once in a while on specifically how to respond to these FOIAs and all.
So the way you guys made the request, it seemed as though at least one officer per day is working. At least more or less.
It
right?
depends. I mean, we'll get a bunch of requests and then not have any for a while, so we kind of go in spurts and we keep a log of how many requests there are. That's in the.
Every month we present it
monthly
in
report.
our monthly report to the police commission, a FOI log that, you know, has information, who the person is, what they requested, specific, not specific, excuse me, general request, and then, the date that it came in and the date that we get it done.
We also have, it's not FOI requests, but every criminal arrest we make, the court asks us for all the video. Another thing. So for those types of videos, I would say probably most days the administrative officer is working on booking photo and that kind of video, so.
For every case.
Every case.
Every case that goes to court. Every case that goes to court, they ask for all the video.
You guys are sure a part-time position would be sufficient.
We think so, you know.
I have 2 questions. Ryan, on the town side, how do we handle this stuff? Do you have a dedicated person, part-time person?
So-
How is it handled?
FOI requests are a lot different on the town side because they're not as substantial. Usually, now that can change. I mean, in my experience, I have seen some fishing expeditions for potential lawsuits, but it's much smaller in nature. It might be an FOI for all of the dogs licensed in the town, and that would go, you know, to Kate Wall in her office, and because there's companies that want to market to dog owners or something to that effect. But The FOIs that I've seen so far in my time here have been, much smaller in nature. That is a totally different.
Yeah,
animal
I
as far
was
as
just
time.
trying to consider whether it made some sense or not to have a full-time person to cover yours and theirs at the same time, but if there's specialized stuff for yours, I don't know how that would work.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna have access to very sensitive videos at times, and so, that would be kind of a whole thing.
It's actually specialized. Like I get at least one a week, but I can go into the finance database. So you'd have to teach somebody the finance database, the town clerk's database. It's actually candidly most, like, for example, once a year, Open the Book sends every single finance director in the country. We want to know all the employees, their pay, years, tenure, all that. And I've built an extract, it takes like 15 minutes. Once you do it, they're probably more standard year to year.
Where we've really run into the issue, I do a lot of the redaction, Sergeant now started doing it with me. That could take hours to redact a fatal car crash, because any picture of a victim has to be redacted, blurred. But you can't cut the video out, so you have to go in and basically frame by frame, blur out the video. And when you're talking about 6 officers who are walking around the scene, every time they turn and they get a view of a victim, it's 6 plus 6 cars, or however many people are there. But typically with a fatal crash, we've got the crash team comes in, from home, they're all wearing body cameras, just exponential. It can take 20, 30 hours of redaction time to go through all of that video.
Thank you.
Think about that. Given that it's becoming so prevalent in the police industry, does anybody look from the outside to kind of zero in and specialize into this to outsource it for police departments? Sounds like a good business to get into.
It does sound like a good business, but I think the problem would be, a company outsourcing wouldn't be able to access your sensitive things like your sexual assaults, your minors, your juveniles. Domestic violence, another one, yeah, that would be a problem. I don't know how they would get around that. They'd have to change the law, I think.
I think we exhausted FOI.
There's a section in the book on that too.
We're all head count and why you're asking for additional officers.
Yeah.
Absolutely, sure.
You want to start on?
Yeah, I'll start. So I handed out to you a couple of, 4 things. One is just an overall kind of clean copy of our organizational chart. And then there's an organizational chart that has a lot of red in it, but I'll get to that one in a minute. But there is a control staffing analysis, the sheet that looks like this. This is a NSA police staffing analysis. It's their worksheet. And what I did is this is a workload assessment staffing analysis. So these are our actual calls for service numbers, second unit response, numbers of arrests. These are 2023 numbers, because at the time when I did it here at the first of the year, those are our complete numbers. And so you go through, some of these are averages. You look like a vacation time, awarded days is 21. Well, most of our officers are younger. They get 16 vacation days after 5 years of service plus 5 personal days. That's where the 21 is. Training days, all of those things. Those are our actual Berlin PD numbers. We lose on average 4 officers a year through attrition, either to retirements or people that leave police work or leave for another agency. It works out to about 4 a year historically. So once you input all of this data into the staffing analysis, the staffing analysis comes up with what we need is 50 officers. And we have been looking at that as a number kind of anecdotally over the last couple of years, but this really drove home. That's an actual real number for this based on workload assessment. The other paper that I gave you, the other regular 8.5 by 11, is just it's a piece of an article that from a January study that talks about police staffing based on per capita, based on number of residents. And the average in the country, it ranges from just over 2 in some very large cities where, with high populations, to about 2.6, but the average, and with smaller agencies, it's typically higher on the average, is 2.51 officers per 1,000, and our 2020 census puts us at 20,199. And so that also kind of, I didn't expect them to be exactly the same. I figured there might be a little bit of difference there, but they come out to be 50, based on the per capita staffing was 50.45 officers would be the number. Now, if you look at the organizational chart,
So this chart here, where does the 50 people come from?
I'm going to look back at the very last line.
We're trying to save paper.
And now, operationally, 46 police officers operationally actually really kind of works for us. But we can never be at 46 unless we staff to 50, because it takes a year to hire and train each officer. We have 4 people in the academy now that we won't see until we have 2 that are going into the academy in 2 weeks. We have 2 in the academy that went in, January? Yeah. We won't see the 2 January hires on the road until October because of the amount of time it takes to train and then field train. A little over 6 months in the academy and then another 480 to 520 hours of field training.
Of course, we're presuming they're all gonna make it too.
Right. And, obviously the 2 that we hired last couple weeks ago, we won't see until after the first of the year. So they're employees on the books, but for our purposes, they're not providing any service to the town because of the amount of time it takes to train them. So we lose that from a staffing perspective, which is why, with average attrition of about 4, the data says you staff at 50 because you're probably really only going to have 45 or 46 operationally at any given time. And you hope to do better than that, but it is what it is with people leaving and changing jobs, especially as this younger generation doesn't stay in a career for 30 years. Like, those of us that are old, went to work somewhere and stayed there for an entire career. They just don't do that. Then,
So the last couple of years, what's been your, you would call your equivalent FTE average for the past 2 years? In terms of, as the average 42 active officers, 41, 39,
Well, every year it's gone up. We've tried to go up by 2, so we started at 38 and then we're at
I guess
40.
what I mean is active officers in the field.
Oh, right.
As opposed to
What's our
training
staffing
and all
level?
that.
Yeah.
And we didn't
What's
get to
been the operational?
Yeah, operationally, right now, we're at 41.
41, yeah.
And, because we have 5 people still in training. And, we anticipate at least one retirement in the next maybe couple, 2-3 months. Maybe, there's potential for another one. One of the problems that we have that I'm very concerned about, and this is something that, we need to partner with government leadership, with you guys and the council, is 2 years ago, so 2023, we went from a 401k back to a pension. Some of you guys were involved. What that did was there's a 5-year vesting period for everybody who went into that pension. So we basically stopped normal attrition. We're not losing, 2 people to retirements a year. We've stopped that for 5 years. But if you look on the chart with all the red, that's the potential for July of 2028. Now, I don't think all of these people are all going to leave on the same thing. It's unrealistic. But even if half of the people on this list leave, or 6 or 7 of them leave, we're going to be in crisis.
Is the pension portable?
No.
So that's a deterrent for them to leave, though. I mean, 401ks are portable, very portable.
Yeah, but several of these people on this list are going to be in their late 50s.
I meant from the younger.
Oh, the younger people
no.
are going. I'm only looking at people that have a 25 years, they're fully vested, or are over age 55. So these people in red are only those people that would be fully pensioned, 25 years service, or over age 55. So that doesn't account for anyone leaving early.
The pension has done an incredible job helping us retain our people and stop the bleeding. I mean, really, it just stopped it. So that's been great. And we find that these young officers are smart. They're shopping around. They're going to departments with pensions. Our pension isn't the best, but it's not the worst. It's right in the middle. And people like that. And they're coming here. In the last couple of years, we've got some very good candidates. So,
Is there, just another question, I guess, it's like, is there any ideal number for the number of candidates you can have in process without it starting to have a negative impact on, I mean, it's care and feeding for all these people, especially when they get out of the academy. And how many can you handle? We got 4 right now. Can you go to 6? Can you go to 7? Can you go to 8?
Well,
What's that impact on your
it
workforce too?
impacts the workforce because, they have to do field training officer
Right.
program. And we don't have, every officer is not a field training officer. So we have a limited number of field training officers. We've made some new ones in anticipation. Plus, as people age out or move to other jobs, they can't be field training officers. If they move into, say, the detective bureau, or they move up to command instructor, supervisor, whatever. So, if we have 4 at the same time, we're stretching our FTOs. And everybody's got somebody. They don't stay with the same FTO for the 15-week period. They have to do different individuals, so they have to rotate to a minimum of 3. We've looked at that too.
So would you have to stagger these 2 in?
Well,
The 2 wouldn't be a problem.
yeah, and they're
Yeah,
3
2
months
months.
apart, so we're probably okay with that, because the 2 that are in the academy that started in
I
January,
mean, I'm talking about the 2 new ones that you'd be requesting.
well,
If,
to be quite honest, we're probably, I mean, there's one candidate we have that we could hire, you know, in July. But it will take us 4 to 6 months to just go through a hiring process to find a candidate.
So we're looking at the end of summer,
okay.
which would
Oh,
automatically
next
staggers our
fiscal year.
FTOs because there's so many months between.
So,
You know, it's like a natural stagger. If we had 6 at once, we would have a problem. In the packet that I gave you, besides, why did we conduct the staffing analysis? There's some information on there. And then I also had written an article for the International Association of Chiefs of Police, Police Chief Magazine, I submitted back in the fall on succession planning. And it's a hot topic in law enforcement. It's more of a hot topic in the state of Connecticut because we have the highest standards for law enforcement officers in the country. Our officers have to constantly be going to class, certifications. Our academy's long, our requirements are more stringent. So our hiring pool is not a pool anymore. It's kind of like a puddle because a lot of people aren't coming into law enforcement and they see the high standards, and a lot of people get knocked out for various reasons when we're trying to hire. So even if you said, hey, why don't we hire 6 people right now? Well, we're not going to have 100 people coming to try and get 6. We'll have 20 people and get 1 or 2 if we get 20 good candidates. Now, it was said earlier, and I don't know if Rob or the deputy chief, somebody mentioned it. The last 4 people who we hired were phenomenal candidates. They had great backgrounds. I wish they all had great backgrounds like that. They all don't have great backgrounds. And to get to that point, it takes us time. We have to do the physical, they got to do a mental health assessment, a psychological, they got to do a polygraph. Polygraph knocks people out, the psychological knocks them out. And all that's costing us money, by the way, while we're trying to find potential candidates. Then the background packet. And we do a hell of a background downstairs, rivals the feds when it comes to the information that we put in our background investigation. The police commissioner seated behind me can tell you the book is this thick. It's got everything about the person in there. And then it's a matter of, review and are we going to take that candidate? To get to that point costs us money and months. It takes months. So one of the things about that succession planning is the idea is to plan a year down the road. If we can plan a year ahead. Now, I was hired here 3.5 years ago by the police commissioner. At that time, they said, the main question I was asked in my interview process was, can you get this department to 50 people? And I said, oh, yeah, we can get to 50. And then, that was coming off of things like the Police Accountability Act and, colleges are emptying out, coming back from COVID. The pool of candidates just not that great. And what we've done for the past 3 years is hired to a year, or tried to get to a year. So as we work our way in that 5-year strategic plan to get to that 50 number, which realistically, 50 is 46 for us.
This is the first time we've been full staff for a long time.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time.
So one of the things that I complained about last year was overtime keeping going up.
Mhm.
Okay, so my expectation is as you hire more people, I want to see that number come down, and it hasn't. It's going the other way every year. Okay,
Well, if you look at our
it went up
numbers for this
substantially in
year-
24, okay? Yeah, you brought it down because it was, 24 was an excessive year. It was a lot lower before this year. So my expectation is that from FY 25, you have 650,000 overtime with less people. I expect some drop in the budget for FY 25.
Yeah.
And there is no drop there in your budget, proposed one, that's all. So we gotta look at that, okay? You know, I'm just playing the numbers here, okay?
But you did cut $100,000 last year from the original proposal, right? It was 750 and then we went to 650.
The proposal was 751, 650, and if you look at our numbers this year, it's a lot more compartmentalized this year, and you also gotta remember when we talk about overtime, that includes dispatch overtime as well.
Mhm.
And we've had some hits to our budget this year. If you look at the overtime where we are this year, we're doing extremely well. I think we're in the 400 area with overtime. And that's having to take some hits this year. For instance, we had an officer, a sergeant, that injured himself off duty.
Mhm.
So it wasn't workman's comp, but he was out for like 4 months. And that cost us about $24,000 to fill his overtime while he was gone. We've got another sergeant out now with a shoulder injury. The Hawthorne fire cost us somewhere in the area of $18,000 in overtime. Waived fees, that's at about $63,000 this year.
What was that? Wait.
Waived
Mhm.
fees. So,
Dispatch overtime.
for instance,
Yeah, dispatch
we,
overtime.
the town asked us to staff all the polling booths now with overtime officers. And we do that. So this year, with the presidential election, that cost over $3,300 out of our overtime. But even with that and the hits we took, and we had, during our construction, they had to close off the bathroom in the dispatch center. So we had to make sure a second dispatcher was working at all times because they had to leave the dispatch center to use the bathroom. And that cost us about $41,000 because a 3-week project turned into
3 months.
3 months to get that fixed. But,
You see that?
and if you look at our overtime.
So he wants to slow that down. And say it again.
Say it again?
Sometimes there's only one dispatcher working.
Well, I know
Yes.
this concept, because you gotta man the phones at all times.
Yeah,
I get
we
it,
post
but
all times.
3
So,
weeks became 3 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
This
they
is
told
the
us when they were
conversion
gonna
of the
start the bathroom, it was gonna be, it's gonna take us about 3 weeks to get the bathroom and dispatch renovated.
We didn't have it done
And it was-
till Christmas.
Can we get that from the construction company?
So this model here that you gave us,
Mhm.
does that consider overtime? It's all, so you consider the 50 is straight time. right?
Great time, yes.
So it could be less officers if you're working overtime, right? I mean, if you're saying you need 50, and if this model, as it says, it doesn't include any overtime, if you're working overtime, you don't need 50 necessarily, right? I'm just.
I guess you could say that. I mean, you could.
This is a
you'd
pure
be-
model.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, so,
Yeah.
you know, if you wanna staff with
No, I'm just trying to
overtime.
understand because we have budget issues. and-
there's always gonna be overtime, crash
I
happens at the end
understand,
of
there's always
shift.
gonna be
and
some overtime, but I just want to
training.
understand.
There's
this
always
model.
gonna be some.
Also, when I was a young officer, I had to work overtime. Young officers today, I know this is a problem with Generation Z. They want to work a 40-hour, maybe a 50-hour work week tops. Their work-life balance is very important to them. In fact, it's so important. We focus on police wellness. We have to deal with work-life balance. And I know that some of the information is in this packet and some of the information that was in your research for that NSA about a percentage of work-life balance. We don't get the cop that wants to work 80 hours a week anymore. They're not out there unless they're an older guy. You know, I mean, it's realistic. Young people, they come in, they work their 40 hours and, you know, we try to get them to work other events and stuff because, you know, we've been shorthanded at times and we scramble. We have to scramble.
I would agree with you that when we have more officers, so when these 4 that are in training get on the street, our overtime cost should go down.
Absolutely. And we've had a lot
Without
less order-ins this year compared to last year.
Well,
For overtime.
you're doing better this year than you're.
Yeah, but part of that's because we have some more people that we were able to get on the road.
You guys, it's been a really tough year to go to additional officers. This is a really tough budget year.
I agree.
So We're,
Yeah.
we're,
I agree.
walls running twice on this one.
So Kevin, I got a couple of specific, questions, on the numbers themselves. You know all the budget numbers? Okay. So my question is on police personnel, okay? You're going from 46 to 48. So if I take those two officers out, it looks like you guys are putting a 10% wage increase in that category. So I guess I'm trying to understand, is it a 10% wage?
Four and a
increase?
quarter contractual rates,
Well, all I did
plus
was,
the additional personnel.
take out the value of the two personnel under wages, which was 150,000. I'm just comparing it from FY 25 to FY 26. If I just do a calculation of numbers, it's a 10% increase excluding those two ads. So I guess we gotta take a look at that number,
You're talking budget to budget or actual to budget?
budget to budget.
What do you think of the two?
The two guys, which you gave me was 149,000 wages alone, the two guys.
Per,
No,
oh,
it was-
wages?
It was 75 per hour.
Okay.
I guess I'm just asking a follow-up on it, because it does look like 10%. Then on item professional personnel, it went up from, that one item, it went up from 138,000 budget to 176. That's a 28% increase. What is that?
That's the way.
Oh, that FOIA's in there? Because it doesn't discuss it in the notes.
And then it just looked like one guy was getting a
Okay.
38.
I thought the deputy was getting a $40,000 increase.
If we don't get the FOIA, can I get the extra money?
Okay, it didn't say it in the notes. It doesn't say that. Okay.
Oh, that explains,
Yeah.
Okay.
that makes sense now.
Are there any other questions?
How are you staffed as far as the dispatchers? Are you at a good number for
We're
that?
we're fully staffed. Right now, and we're looking good. And that's why I brought up, because a lot of people don't even know that all that dispatch overtime comes from the police overtime
All
budget
comes from the
too.
same line.
So, it's all mixed together in the same pot, which is fine, you know, but we are fully staffed with dispatch. We've been very lucky when it comes to dispatch. We have a lot of dispatchers that have been here long term.
Mhm.
So we're good at that,
So from an
better than most.
operational standpoint, you managing those separately for overtime? The dispatch category versus the officers? I mean, do you know, are you managing?
Oh, absolutely. It's all tagged. They're all part of, in our system, and it's all tagged so we can track it to the penny.
But what you're saying is it shows in this
Yeah,
one line.
One.
Yes.
Any other?
So, yes, so just for clarification, on the road right now, how many officers?
41.
41. I need that one, FTO. One.
Yeah,
One.
one left.
40. No, 41 plus
Plus
one.
Radio system up and running?
The radio system, I'm glad you asked that. I almost forgot to just bring this up. So, the finance director was asking me that too, because he said, we haven't got a bill yet. But actually, we're very much in full swing. Last week, Norcom was here for 3 days in a row. They reprogrammed all the car radios, all the portable radios. And I'll just skip to the chase and kind of get to the end of it. I have the timeline from the start, but we're looking at being fully implemented by May. Within 2 months,
Is
it
that
should be fully
why,
implemented.
is that why that 12,000, it seems like when you give the statewide info, is that the charge for it?
No, communication, are you talking about the line item budget?
Yeah.
Communications is a statewide communication system that we have to pay into.
So 12,000, and then it's gonna increase 3,000 in 2026. 15,000. Sounds about right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Is the training numbers going up? Is that because you're bringing new officers in? Is that what it is?
Yeah, new officers kill our training budget.
I
Yes.
mean, you had $1,800 in FY 25, you went up at 89.
It's reclassification. If you look above the 76,000, we did that budget wide. for everybody.
Plus training, our training budget also includes when we're hiring new hires, we have to run, we do a psych exam and we
It's all.
do a lie detector test and, you know, ammunition also comes out of our training budget. So,
$4,000 each for the
Yeah.
academy fee.
That's gotta be down from 45 to 9mm.
yes,
Oh, yes, it will.
yes, we are. If we can ever get those.
We gotta get
operational,
holsters.
We ordered holsters for
Waiting
the
for 'em
entire
for months.
department and it's been months and months. That's why they're not on the belts yet. Because the
Yeah.
45 ammo is so much more, it's like double the cost. And we don't want to buy any more 45, so
Yeah.
we're like, get us these holsters.
Well, our new officers going to the academy are already, transitioned to the 9.
We can get
They're
one
not
or
gonna
two
get
at a time, but we can't get both ordered.
The what?
Yeah, they're solid. I don't
Yeah.
really understand all this. The stuff we carry
Here.
on duty is the good stuff.
Yeah.
The ball ammo is what we shoot for practice, the cheap stuff.
Don't give me the new pocket.
No.
Ranger T. room.
The truck that was referenced earlier was taken out of the budget because it was purchased, so you see it's not on the list. The only capital is 70,000, which is supplementing the extra duty 150,000 that was transferred that actually allowed the purchase of the truck earlier, so that, yeah, that process is working, and then the block safety cameras.
Mhm.
For capital.
Anything else? This is very good information. We Appreciate the work.
Great. We know you got a tough job. We
Yes.
appreciate you having us.
No.
Any
It's
questions?
hard to be a mind reader though.
Yep.
Let's say you guys do get to 50, right? We have
Well,
a-
50 would be 2 years from now.
Do you have a plan to increase sergeants and lieutenants? I have obviously, I've done a pretty lengthy succession plan for our agency that includes training. I've just already done a survey of our patrol officers to gauge interest in supervisory training so that maybe we can bring in somebody and do some training classes here for leadership for our line officers to get them ready for sergeant. And then there's some things I want to do for the sergeants to get them ready to take the lieutenant spots. You know, I mean, that's a worst case scenario graphic. You know, I would expect 6 or 8 people maybe will leave in that, you know, after that July 28, maybe in the next 6 months. And if we're at 50, we can weather that storm. I mean, we're at 41 today and we're weathering the storm. So, but there is a succession plan that.
But to answer your
I
question,
think the
most of
question
them
is,
are gonna be on patrol.
Oh, but part of
That's
your
gonna
question was to
bolster the
ask us
patrol division.
if we were gonna have more supervisors? Was that part of the question?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, it is part, but.
Yeah.
To answer the question, just like.
Yeah.
It's fine if you guys are at 50, but. Looking at all these red boxes on the senior level.
That's why we need to do the
So
training
those
part.
people are all gonna have to move up and then we replace them and you start from the bottom. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Before we move on, I just wanted to talk about the flock safety. I know it's the smallest item, so maybe nobody's too interested in it. So it's listed as 51,000 on the budget. We do have a deal working with the salesman. They've offered to get rid of $15,000 of implementation and installation costs if we sign with them. There are other companies out there that offer the same type of services. Obviously, they want to meet their sales goals, and I've been working with them for a while, trying to get the best deal for the town. So that would only be $36,000, not $51,000. But just to talk a little bit about what that system does, obviously I'll answer any questions any of you have of what that money would be spent and what would we get for it. But basically, the flock safety cameras are license plate reader cameras that are placed throughout the community at strategic locations. There's a lot of misconceptions about what license plate reader cameras do. They do not take pictures of people. They take pictures of vehicles and license plates. The license plate itself is what triggers it to take a photograph. I could pass this around, but I need it back as part of an active investigation. So that is the information that we actually get from a flock safety camera capture. It captures the fingerprint, if you will, of a vehicle. It can search by make, model, and color. I'm sorry, not model, but make and color it could search by, and as well as the license plate at night or during the day. So this is actually one we are using in an active case of a recent robbery we had, something that's from another town. We don't actually have block cameras within Berlin. Since we've been talking with the company, they've allowed us a trial version of the software, which allows us access to any town that is willing to share their data with us, then we get access to their data. As the customer, the data is ours, so it's up to us whether we want to share it with other law enforcement agencies, and it can only be shared with law enforcement agencies. It's not for commercial use, it's not for sale, it's not for marketing, it's not to be accessed by anyone other than sworn law enforcement. So it has the same protections as, say, the collector NCIC system. So there is strong safeguards for privacy involved in this system. And in the case like this, we have a crime and we have a witness that says that it was a white Mercedes. All right. And someone saw two letters off the license plate. That doesn't give you much, right? I mean, there's thousands of white Mercedes. There's thousands of cars that have two letters. But when you put it all together and you cast a large net, well, somewhere in the state, there's going to be white Mercedes with those letters. And if it's close to us, then there's a possibility maybe that's our vehicle. I could tell you, if we did have a flock camera, our suspect vehicle would have driven right by one of the locations that we do want to put one in. So this is just one instance. We had another evading crash last week or 2 weeks ago where a gentleman was pumping gas. He pulled out of a gas station on the Berlin Turnpike, and then he sideswiped a AAA tow truck. In that instance, the tow truck didn't see his license plate, only saw what kind of car it was. So through the flock search, we got numerous hits on that type of vehicle in nearby towns, which we thought was a likely candidate because after that crash happened, that vehicle no longer showed on any other nearby communities. So obviously the car was damaged, so they were probably getting it fixed. So we zeroed in on that vehicle and were able to find where it is. And there's a case that we never would have had a chance to solve.
So is this for like a system or subscription to and a certain number of cameras?
It is.
Yes.
It's a per year fee and it's $3,000 per camera. And so it's based on the number of cameras that you have. We did an analysis and we felt that to get the most coverage that we would need in town, 12 cameras would cover all of our major thoroughfares and entrances and exits into town and out of town. And they also work in conjunction with other neighboring agencies, like the border of Newington. Newington has a camera, so we only need one. We wouldn't need to cover both directions. We would only cover one direction. Newington would cover the other direction. Same in Southington on Southington Road. They have one on their side of Southington Road, so we would only need one over there.
Does the fee go up as you add more cameras?
Not per camera, no, but
Would
it's
that
it's
fee be the
$3,000
same
per
every year?
camera.
The fee.
That would be a cost per year, and
If
it's
you want-
adjustable.
No. The 51 includes the installation
Yeah.
cost. It would be what,
36.
36?
Oh,
About 36 per year.
For
to
12
maintain
cameras.
it.
For 12 cameras, and that's fully adjustable at any time. If we felt that we didn't need 12 cameras at some point, for some reason, we could have 10 cameras.
This
If
is
we
the
felt-
system that Southington's got all luckily.
Yeah, this is even, and I'm no salesman for Flock. I'm a salesman for being able to get the information that my investigators need to solve crimes to keep all of us safe. I live in this community.
That car you saw was the first snatching that just occurred in our town yesterday. And that led us to that suspect vehicle in the day. But we wouldn't normally have access to that flock information, except that they granted us because we're
Trial.
local. So we have a trial access.
Trying to
We
sell
never
it.
would have gotten that
Courtesy
data
kind of thing.
I can,
before, so.
in the several months we've had the trial access, we've had at least a half a dozen cases that I can tell you we would not have solved if we didn't have access, and this is to access to other agencies' data.
Is
So-
this also for like red light running?
No.
and
No.
Stuff like that?
No.
So
That
nothing-
information is deleted in 30 days, and it doesn't run everyone's plate. It compares the plate to a list they have of stolen vehicles or people that are wanted, so on and so forth.
It is for investigations. not-
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
So if a
not,
stolen vehicle drives into our town
Yeah.
and this plate reader picks it up, it will send us an alert. that this vehicle with this picture just entered your town.
So this system isn't actively connected to the collect system, which is DMV and
Oh.
NCIC. What it has is a hot list that DMV and NCIC pushes out to these companies on a daily basis. So any vehicle that's listed as stolen in the state, they get this list, they populate it into their system, and if a license plate matches any of those, then we get an alert. So if a stolen
What
car
the
drives
alert
into Berlin from Newington on the Berlin Turnpike, we'll get an alert. Our officers that are working will get the alert on their cell phone. They can turn it off at the end of the shift. There's an app they download, dispatch will be notified, so everyone will know, oh, a stolen car just drove into Berlin. And-
I'll ask the question, or Lieutenant, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The 12 cameras,
Yeah.
is that what you think you can get approved, or do you need more cameras?
No,
Like realistically speaking.
I don't want more than I need. 12 is perfectly enough to do what we need to do.
Well, I guess to the example that you gave where the AAA truck and the guy hits it and rabbits, he didn't get his license. Unless the car had some prior whatever, you still wouldn't have gotten it because it wouldn't take a picture.
Well, a lot of other towns have the flock too as well, so you can input a plate into it and see if that's hit
Oh,
on any of the other
It's
cameras.
capturing every plate that drives by.
Okay,
It just doesn't take action on a plate unless it's on the hot list.
okay. So
You could
Yeah,
put it
it's
in
just
the
capturing, like, I
With no
couldn't
plate.
tell you the specific in that case, but let's say,
if you had
Meriden
an
or Chester.
incident, you knew that camera was there, you can go back and look at what it did record, even though it's, so it's not gonna automatically.
No,
It'll
it
give you the
it generates
automatic,
leads.
it's a suspect.
It generates leads. It doesn't solve cases on its own, obviously. Even in that case, all it did was show us that, hey, there was a car that used to drive through Cheshire every day. But when this crash happened, all of a sudden that car doesn't drive where it used to go every day. And it holds 30 days of data. So that shows us, hey, let's look at that car because we got the license plate. And we go and look and, all right, that appears to be the vehicle that was in the crash. And you could compare the registered owner to the person on surveillance video from the gas station when it left just prior to the crash. And you got a lot to put together, but you would have nothing to piece that together without the block system.
Would the system, let's say you put in information, right? White Mercedes into the system, would the system then go look for these cars in real time?
No, not real time.
So if it's not there,
There's no video, so it's just snapshot and it's just historical. Other than if you get a hit on something that's in their hot list, which is reported as stolen or Amber Alert. If there's a vehicle put out as an Amber Alert, that'll automatically get pushed to all these vendors, that do LPRs.
In the handout, you have, there's a section on block safety camera and a little blurb in there about intelligence-led policing, which is something that we've started doing downstairs over the past year, where we're using our resources to better advantage when we do intelligence-led policing. So instead of just sending officers out and say, hey, go find crime, we're looking at all the data, using technology to put our resources where we're gonna get the most bang for buck. And that's written in the handouts that I gave you too.
To Jerry's question, this is more curiosity, you guys have any thoughts towards red light cameras? I come out on Orchard Road in Berlin Turnpike every day, and it's like, stop the red light, it turns green, wait 15 seconds to make sure the freaking tractor trailer is not blowing through. It happens at least, every time I stop there, it probably happens 4 out of the 7 days I do. And sometimes it's 2, 3, 4 cars, and they're moving like a bat out of it.
Well, the good news is we've got a rural roads enforcement grant going right now in Orchard. It's on that grant. Lots of discussion in the state about red light cameras. The Police Commission has discussed it. Just like every other town is waiting to see what it's gonna do for the town that tries
One
one.
trial, right?
Yeah, and I understand that West Hartford is gonna go forward. Most of the red light camera information that's out there is third-party vendor now, so it's not like we're set up to go and collect fines and all that. There's a whole bunch involved with that. And the state does get involved with where you can put them. Because if it hits a certain population metric, that they don't want that metric. So that study would have to be done. We looked into it with the police commission for a year we've been looking into it, really.
Yeah.
And, we're waiting to see what other people are gonna do, and see what happens, because the bugs aren't worked out of it yet. It would be kind of foolish to put money into something and not get a benefit out of it.
With
And-
Orchard Road, Spruce Brook on the Turnpike, we had like 2 fatalities. in the
Yeah.
last 3 or 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
And really, the goal is to change driving behavior.
Yeah.
Obviously, the goal of traffic enforcement is to change driving behavior.
Right.
I haven't seen studies on red light cameras on what they do, but I believe the best way to change driving behavior is the presence of officers actively enforcing. The lights is what does it, and people seeing the police car. I've been an officer for 18 years, and anytime I see a cruiser anywhere I am, it gets your heartbeat going, doesn't it?
Just started.
I got more vacation.
But my point is, it doesn't matter who you are. You see a police cruiser and you're gonna start driving safe.
I was
You know,
sitting
get
there
your heart
one day,
going.
And I had a police cruiser behind me, and somebody just went flying through the thing, and the guy went, we're going.
Sometimes we are in the right place at the right
You were
time.
this time,
Yeah.
made my day.
So, yeah, like active enforcement is the best way. And in order to do that, it all goes back to our staffing. If we keep our staffing levels up, then we're able to have the flexibility to put more resources toward traffic
Like you,
enforcement.
just getting this grant recently is because we had more people. When we opportunity for the grant last year, we didn't have enough people on the road to say, okay, we'll take the grant, because if we take the grant, we gotta actually use the money and have officers out there to do it. Now we have officers that are doing it, you know,
We got 4 new radar units.
out of the grant, yeah, which is also good.
Alright, so, just one final question. Based on the count of 41 officers, what's the average overtime? You know, say, what's an average overtime per week that you're experiencing? For that group, say, 10 hours a week, 15 hours, I'm just curious.
I think, it's kind of dependent on what's happening. I mean,
But
this
there's
week
gotta
we've
be
been
an
pretty
average
busy.
of Overtime that you do over a month, say, if you gotta, what is the average? Just curiosity. You don't have to answer that now.
We can come up
We
with
can
that.
find out, we have to get
I
that
mean, all we
done.
gotta do is search the
I'm just
system and
curious to
we
say,
can come up with an average.
what
no
are you
problem.
working? 50, on average, 50 per officer, 55, 60? I'm just.
We kind of tried.
The young guys are working 40, the old guys are working 60.
We were talking more about order ins this year, and our order ins are way less this year than last
And
year.
order ins equal
We can do an
overtime.
analysis
You
of
don't,
that.
I don't need that right now.
Yeah, but we can get that.
Our patrol officer overtime is lower, much lower, but our supervisor overtime, because of the people being out injured, is really where we're taking the hit this year.
And 41 on the road is the highest we've
And
been
mandatory.
in 3-4 years.
There's no extra. Have to have a sergeant work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
You never felt- you never felt so protected.
I thought about you, when I was driving the other day, and I'm saying that, road grant, they're gonna be right there.
It's improved a little bit, but we still get.
I see it in the morning, I see it at night when I'm on that road, I go to your neighborhood a lot, it's a tough street. And then even the trucks, we don't want them there, I see them coming down. the road.
It's right, I go down, it's like, wait, watch, and then go.
Yeah.
Especially when it's not short.
Absolutely broken.
Yeah, right. Well, there's a real spot for punishment.
Yeah.
I know, sideline sites.
Alright, so, a couple things. Are there any budget questions that we have? I did something,
Sorry.
it's okay. I took the $2.6 million Berlin High School, funds, and I did a kind of a scenario I'd like to share with everybody on how to use it. And it's just my scenario, I need input or whatever. If I have that prepared, so for discussion tonight, so we can talk about it. And this is just my scenario, okay? So let's look for input. Copy? Sure. Might be a little, aggressive in some of the numbers, but what I did was start with the 2.6 million. I said, you have $1,000,004 for the small and vehicles and machinery, so I said, fund 700,000 of that number. By using those VHS reimbursement, the 750, the balance stays in the general budget. Okay. Okay, and then I said, fund another $1,000,000 of the large vehicles project section with that. And the question is, how much more do we want to, beyond that number, we want to fund? And I also say, take the new fire vehicle and fund that instead of bonding it. That's just the scenario that I, put down here. And then, I know we had 450 for all projects, whatever, I put it, so let's start off with 150, I said, fund that 150. So based on that, and if you look at the bottom part of it, if you start with capital 4,000,003, you fund $1,007,000, with the VHS reimbursement. If I removed all the capital without not leaving it in general fund, it would be a almost $3.6 million decrease. And then on the other side, on the capital projects, it would be a $300,000 decrease. So this is just a scenario that I put together. And that would be welcome to comments.
The construction services of the 150, is that under one?
They had,
It's a public building
Oh, yeah.
commission.
Yeah, they have
for
a five-
27
9
projects
projects of 50K apiece.
for architectural.
Yeah.
engineering work.
So this is just my scenario for our discussion, but I think we should use it considering where we are with the budget this year, so we can change it, we can talk about it, whatever.
One of my questions would be relative to the fire vehicle.
Yeah.
So what would the bonding cost us versus using 750,000 in this budget?
I mean, you would borrow 750 and it's about 5% interest rate, which would decline over the 10 years.
Well, I'm just thinking, are we better off using the
Using
bonding,
the cash.
using the cash to get rid of more one-time stuff that we have to do anyway? That would be less into our budget.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just laid out these.
No, I know.
scenarios,
Well, that's the only thing that caught my
Okay.
eye on that.
Is this the engine or the tanker?
The tank.
This is the tanker.
I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying
Yeah.
bond it
Yeah.
and use
That's
750
20, 30 year
to
service
offset
life, so it's not like we're bonding.
budget money.
I don't have as much concern with bonding a fire truck. It's gonna be in service for 20 years.
We hope, come on, don't just jinx it.
Well, the last time we bought it.
I know.
Company went out of business.
Yeah, I know.
A whole fleet of parts, fire trucks we couldn't buy parts for.
That's a good point, because you're not really saving much.
I mean, technically, you could put it all towards a small vehicle if you were gonna do all that stuff, and that takes another,
Well, the
750
thing
out
is,
of the
out
the
of the
budget.
things that I want to do is keep on taking all the capital out every year. I want to keep something in there so that every year we don't say we got to come up with all 100%, that was my intent too.
But this would take 1.4 million out of it.
Well, or like he said before, we could just switch that over to the large projects, make everything out of stuff that.
Either
would
way.
work. Well,
Either way.
it's just, yeah.
We gotta pare those lists down a little bit anyway, so I think then we can look better at what we're gonna actually do. I mean, the lists are nice, but they're not gonna be the final. But this is a good outline as to what area we're looking at.
I think it's a good start.
Yeah. I mean, definitely the 700,000 on the small vehicles is right on the money, I think. We're gonna be there no matter what. We've got $165,000 lawnmower. So.
The good news is there's it's a bit of that Python snake type of thing where there's a spike, but I think if you can use some of this to get past that, the school vans are very high right now. Once you catch up, I mean, they're not 17 vans behind the ball one. It's going to take a little time to buy them, but now you're going to be down to say 3 vans a year, which is a very different proposition once you get past this point.
Well, is there any possibility, that sheet you gave us said that they're in line possibly to get another $205,000 that was unanticipated. that's gonna help reduce their budget for this year. Maybe we can try and get them to buy one of the vans out of their budget.
Well, certainly, I think that's worth a conversation. What I think they would tell you is it was anticipated. I think they would tell you that was anticipated. They were expecting 80% reimbursement. This covers the shortfall they were going to deal with. I don't think they view that as a windfall. I think they would say they were gonna have a $250,000 shortfall without this.
Right.
Which is why the state is giving the extra money.
I mean, this
statewide.
process is in place. The state's never funded it at the right amount.
Exactly.
Now they're talking about 100 million or whatever for next year, and people are still saying it's 150 million short for what they actually need across the whole state.
So are you saying they would be 200,000 short this year
Yes.
on their budget?
Yeah.
Have to reallocate.
They were
somewhere
expecting an
else.
80%.
I haven't seen that in any of their monthly budget reports or anything that would show that.
Well, this is,
When are they gonna tell us this? In May? June?
Well, I'm not
Well,
sure that
they were actively working. I mean,
Did they
as
know-
we actively work through things, we don't discuss everything as we try to.
Well,
compensate
potential
for stuff.
deficits, I would think you would want to.
I don't know that
So
they
we're
know.
discussing-
They
well,
don't.
last thing, did they know this when they asked the question on Monday?
No.
Well, Jerry asked the
We
question.
asked the question, they said, oh, we don't know, but.
Well,
Well, they didn't know this.
Yeah.
But they knew they're gonna be 200K short.
No, actually, we did talk about this. She said the budget assumed 80% reimbursement and they were down, and I think they were giving like
Veto.
50, so whatever that number is down there, it's a much lower percentage.
The governor had vetoed it.
It was,
Yes.
Yeah.
Berlin was 75, no, 75, it was 62%. Now it's coming up to close to 80%.
It's not how I understood it.
Yeah, this was a statewide problem that the legislature overwhelmingly said, we want to put the money in. The governor said, you're gonna have a problem with the, I don't know if it was the
Their
guardrails or the cap. I mean,
So even after
apparently-
their budget was approved by us, they were still factoring in 80%.
the budget was developed based on 80% and they were operating. The problem with the challenge with excess special ed is the towns own everything below 4.5 times the cost per pupil. So you don't know where you are. They have 2 submissions they have to do, one in the fall in anticipation or being a follow-up, I believe it's January or February, which is kind of their sort of quote unquote final number for the year. Until every community has submitted their numbers, no community knows and the state doesn't know what the actual amount will be. So if the state budgeted $100 million and everybody came in and said it's $300 million, you're gonna end up with realistically a third of what you would have expected to get when you submitted it. So until everybody has submitted, no one knows where they are. That's why the legislature saw this and said, there's a gap statewide. And overwhelmingly, the numbers were huge in both the House and Senate. They said, we need to do this, otherwise we're gonna leave the 200,000 here would be minor compared to what I can only imagine Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven would have faced.
But I guess I'm questioning whether, since the excess cost monies go into a separate fund and they're not in their budget, how did they come up with their budget number? You know, what number did they subtract out of their budget in arriving at the final, what we'll call net budget?
Would you like me to ask Ashley if she can attend your next workshop and discuss? I mean,
You
that's
know,
gonna be the best or worst.
Unless we're, you know, it's totally off the wall, but I mean.
It's a substantial amount of money that
Yeah.
they get reimbursed, and it's obviously a substantial amount. You can see it's a quarter of their budget.
Yeah.
I can ask her to attend and, because I think she's gonna be
Well,
the source.
Either that or if there's not other questions for the Board of Ed, would you authorize me just to do a phone call to try and straighten it out in my own mind?
Easier for me to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Or you have to clear it through the.
I gotta go through
powers that
Jody.
be. Yeah. Well, why don't you talk to her and see if we could still make it easy
Yeah.
and not have to make someone come.
Well, Jody asked for tourism.
Because, no, because, well, there would be a balance in here for.
It would actually be, are you on the grant page?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's probably this one.
And then actually, why don't you get inside and get to the attic?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see.
Yeah.
Come on.
Jim, are you in a submarine?
Are you in the space station?
I think he's laying down on the truck, on the engine. So, talking about the large vehicle project. capital, Is there, there's different departments that who would be best to put a priority list, make them in terms of priority?
I think he's right there.
Well, some of it is not him, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess my question is, can somebody look at it and go,
Yep.
priority one, all the way down, I can see what urgent items are.
Like a must
I
do,
mean, I
should
kind of
do.
guessed, you know what I mean?
I can,
If
I
it
mean,
is, that's it.
I'll tell you, the boilers popped up. I mean, that's a more recent.
I had Willard Plumbing.
Willard Plumbing, I saw that myself. I mean, that does need to be addressed. I can tell, incidentally, I've had a few people come talk about the lights at Sage Park. That does seem like it's a hot topic in town. So
It may be until you have to pay for it.
yeah.
No, therein lies the problem.
On those lights, if I may, so Ron Stack, electrician, but he is working with Eversource, he actually called me the other day. They're probably gonna get Eversource to pay for installation of the lights, at least at the baseball field. We would have to buy the lights, but Eversource will use it as a training for their new linemen to install them. And he's actually gonna go back and ask them if they would do another field. Cause I think they came to us with $500,000 with the
Yeah.
lights in several fields.
Yeah, we gave it to Doug and Doug was reviewing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Eversource, at least from, and I actually just talked to somebody else from Eversource myself that worked for Eversource, but we might have a pretty good deal, at least with the baseball field, which I know there's concern because they do lose the ball and regular lights now, the LEDs would be better for vision for the baseball players and everybody, but if Eversource would pay for they would do the installation for free. The training.
How much would that cut down on the actual cost of $650?
Well,
Rough idea yet, or not really?
The equipment, I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
I don't know if with the lights actually caught, we'll have to get some of that, but.
We could probably hold off on that then.
Yeah, Ron's working on it, and I gotta talk to Doug too about it, and Ron was gonna go back to Eversource. Unfortunately, he kind of had to start over, but I think he got back in. The gentleman he was dealing with for years passed on unexpectedly. So unfortunately, but he did get back into Eversource, and I think they're definitely agreed to the baseball field installation, free. Obviously, they would do it as a training exercise, we buy the equipment. But I asked them to maybe push it to more fields if they would do it. So we might save at least on the baseball field at stage, but so that is discussion.
Anyone know what the electrical upgrades at Timberland are? I thought I knew what was going on at Timberland.
This is,
First I heard of it.
this is, a lot of the stuff they have is, old.
Where are they talking? They're talking about maintenance facility, the restaurant,
Or, yeah.
yeah, well.
There's one to me that, why is it here? It should have gone through public building first, right?
What's the cost on that one?
$100,000.
I saw that.
And it says electrical upgrades, and that's all it says. We have nothing to substantiate it, so that's a no-go right there.
We never did hear before.
First question is, what is it?
What if the first question is, what is it? Then you probably shouldn't be here.
Saul come to the council meeting about that one?
I asked Saul about it today. He said it was not his.
This would all be done.
It wasn't
He said
Saul.
ask Doug Sullivan.
It falls under public buildings.
Okay.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
the,
He said.
Well,
it
also, you
wasn't
mentioned, you mentioned the boiler, so I thought we had 3 boilers to do, right? Yet, in the last council meeting or the one before, 1 boiler came to us. I thought we were looking at 3, and I know we were looking at a different system than I believe Doug initially wanted, so I don't know which system. Because public building had a different thought on what to put in the school. It wasn't the one that I think we first proposed, right?
Well, the boilers, that original conversation would have been the quote unquote energy efficient, the sort of the modern ones. This is not.
That's
This,
not one.
yeah, this is, there's two boilers in Willard.
Yeah.
One of them is basically failing and there's a risk for next winter that it won't work. This is
So,
retrofitting that one boiler to have it work. Then the intent would be to come back and do the second one plus the two others at, I think it's Griswold. And then I think Hubbard has one if I might have the schools backwards, but I think that's right. The idea would be to do the other three subsequently as project, and Doug did get costs for doing all three of those. But this 100,000 is more of an emergency. We don't want the boiler to go out in Willard. Yeah. And there's two in Willard. This would only be one, and it would basically, typically you would gut the room and you would redo and have everything together, but it would not be the energy efficient that the concern of the public building was. You're basically gonna be pushing it out the windows
Right,
because
the
iron is.
certification was in the,
Yeah.
was in the millions.
Yeah.
And Don Lombardo had looked at it, and he says, the building is not set up to be able to handle the HEV. It's way too much.
right, that's right, that's it.
25, 43.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a different, that single one was a different.
Yeah, this is an emergency so that we don't have a problem for next winter. Yeah.
Is this that they were trying to do it over the summer, same thing with plumbing?
They would be separate projects,
But at the same time.
do it over the summer so that by the time the winter hits, the boiler will be functional. And then when the second one goes in, it would be gutting out the room and doing what you would want to do. This is using what's in there so we can get a new boiler in place, and then the rest would be replaced in the second.
Did we ever get from Don, like what? Like I know there was a difference with them, right? And what you said was the difference.
He just said it wouldn't work.
Yeah, right, so
But I don't know if there was ever a revised project that went to building.
Okay, I don't think I saw one
Building,
either.
no.
Yeah, you're
I
right.
don't
He said
remember
that
seeing
system
one.
they wanted would not work. Right. It was like overkill for the building.
So I thought they were going back to
The public
square
building.
one and.
Okay. That might be the case. You might be right.
Okay, so maybe, Ryan, you and maybe Kevin.
We'll work on-
Maybe see.
Yeah,
Just what
just
the real-
prioritize more as far as.
We'll have it for Monday. then.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Is it the entire school parking lot, the side and everything else?
The intent is to do the parking lot, not the driveway area, but this was the parking lot, sort of the lower lot, the really bad one.
Okay.
As well as expand out. There's been a real complaint that there's just not adequate parking there on multiple occasions.
Where's that at?
Willard,
Oh,
so it'd be the lower lot, some additional parking as well as additional lights, because there's been complaints that.
I got a swamp
Yeah.
in the lower part when they.
And Public Works, fortunately, the Deputy Public Works Director is also the liaison for inland wetlands. So they have been talking back and forth of what they could do, getting over there.
They're not like once a year flood.
Yeah.
But it's
That-
it's
It's
bad.
bad.
There's cars parked on the
Yeah,
block.
that's why he wants to.
Yeah.
The parking lot was so bad this winter that our ground superintendent came in and said, as they were plowing, they were just ripping it up with the plow. Just because it was so bad. And when they did some borings, they found that it was basically, they're gonna have to tear it up and build. I described it as almost like a porter's pass. Remember how they had to dip and had to literally rebuild? It's apparently not built the way it should be. So it's no surprise that it's the condition it's in, given that. That's what this is about.
It's only 70 years old.
It gets a lot of use for any number of things. I mean, you drive by there anywhere from like 4 to 7 o'clock on many nights, there's stuff going on there. So the idea would be to expand the parking, improve the lighting for safety, and that's what that's.
So I got a question for you. Looking at the sheet, you have about 700, let's say ballpark for small machines. Do you want us to prioritize the small?
Well, what I did, I said I left 750 in the general fund, so we're covering all of them.
Oh, you're,
We're using 700 or 26.
oh, so you want to cover all your, okay.
Yeah, I'd still like to see.
You want to prioritize. that. Yeah.
You want to prioritize?
Okay, we'll do that.
Number one thing would be is.
In case that's what happens.
What's
That
back
that one, cross that one out.
Well, because it might be a difference between. what-
That's a really bad van.
Yes, it is. And it's never used and it's never moved anywhere. It has almost no miles on it.
Well, sooner.
I know it's bad. I know what it looks like. I've seen it. I just haven't ever seen it out anywhere.
I mean, I know Jim has asked for this
$7,000
for several years.
For the van.
Yeah, hand me down from the police and
Well, they
now.
have second van, it's down there, I don't know. Usually-
Two vans or three vans?
Hey, Jim, can you speak to the animal control van at all? The one we're requesting? He's still there, but Jim, are you still there?
Other side of the moon, it's gonna be back around.
The earth is blocking
On
the
the
dark
dark
side.
side right now.
Here he goes.
I want,
There he is.
I was out getting some parts. What do you want to know?
You speak
Are flashing red.
Jim, how many miles is on that animal control van? I know the things are a wrap.
No pun intended.
Oh, yeah, I
Off the
didn't
top
think of that.
Off the top of my head, I can't really give you an honest answer. The animal control van, I read the animal control van, and the feedback I got back from the council at that night was absolutely not. We're not funding the animal control van. So I did not put it back out there as one of my items. I can tell you that the problem with the animal control van is much like everything. It's rotten out more than it has mileage on it.
Yep.
I didn't put it out there. I felt that we could move forward, figure something out down the road, but I didn't want to upset or aggravate anybody.
Well, I mean, $70,000, I know you can probably dig something up for a lot better than that. If possible, maybe a few-year-old utility van.
The $70,000, right? Right now, a van, and I'm working with the Board of Education on vans right now. Right now, the vans are
You
going
would,
about 50 grand for a new van. And then we have the outfitting of the stainless steel cages and that equipment that's needed inside there. That's where the expense, the added expense, which makes it look extravagant. So can I get a used van somewhere? Possibly. I'm not going to guarantee that, but the bigger question is will our equipment, can I transfer the equipment from the current van into the new van? They don't make those style vans anymore. They went more to transit style, which is a different body configuration. But it's something we can look at. If you want me to put some hard numbers and get back to you, I can do that for you.
Are there two vans that they use?
There are two vans. One van we bought new. Oh, I'm going to say we bought new probably about 12 or 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Other van was a hand-me-down. It was the old traffic van out of the police department.
Yeah.
They felt that they did not need that van anymore and wanted to go with a pickup truck. Basically, the pickup truck that we replaced in there, the Dare truck, is the one that replaced that van. So I'm going to say that is an 013 maybe at best. So the van would be earlier than that.
I got 09 and 06.
So is that the one that they want to get rid of?
We're going to get rid of not Kate's, the other one that's in there.
All right.
Kate is the one we bought new.
Yeah.
The other one is the one that was a hand-me-down that came out of there.
Yeah, that you rigged the inside for them.
You remember?
Yeah.
So
We fabricated the inside.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, that sounds better.
Sorry, Jim. So those are three vans then at the bottom.
Oh.
Because you said school, 55,000.
yeah,
Yeah, right. at the bottom.
Okay, you want to talk about the school vans?
Yeah.
Okay, so the school vans, I sat down with Kimmy at Board of Education, who was working before that with Ashley on them. And the list that you got, we identified 8 vans that need to be immediately replaced. So with the 8 vans that we need to be immediately replaced, what was our best angle to go with? So I did get some vans or pricing and availability on some vans that another organization failed to take because they lost their funding. And those vans were going to cost us 54,000, if I remember correctly. So with that, we'd be able to buy 2 vans. And looking at, we needed 8 vans, we decided that that is not the best way for us to go. So the best way for us to go is with the biggest impact that we can make, getting those high mileage. And when I mean high mileage, I mean 180 to 200,000 miles on these vehicles, which are now, because of that high mileage, they're costing them a lot to maintain. And they have excessive downtime. Besides, they started losing some engines on some of those other vans. So we decided that the best way to go was probably to hit up vans coming off of leases. So the other day we did purchase our first van off of leases, which is used. And we figured that the van that we purchased yesterday, looking at the mileage that they used per year on the current vans, just doing a simple calculation on that, we purchased a 2021 off a lease that had 28,000 miles on it, and we paid 23,000 for it. So we are estimating that that van is going to be good for another 7 to 9 years for them. We're currently going to look at another one tomorrow, a used one, but we figured that the biggest bang for our buck and to get the biggest dividend for them was to purchase used vans that are coming off of leases, that we can probably purchase 4 or 5 of those instead of purchasing 2, which isn't exactly where they need to be, but it will greatly assist them in coming out of the hole that they're in.
Thank you.
Excellent, Jim. That's why I recommended you for the job. Thank you.
Okay.
I knew you were gonna get it done.
It's a project. We're looking at the last one came from Enterprise. The one that we're going to tomorrow is coming out of Papa's. Actually, the one we bought from Enterprise came from Papa's and was in New Britain. It was a lease van. Came off a lease, low mileage. So that's what we're looking for right now.
So thank you for the 150,000. So
So
that's
what-
what's allowing them
vans
to
for
do this
150,
for the non-budget
4 or
appropriation.
5.
4 or 5 vans for probably ultimately less money than one.
They had 8 criticals, 18 that they're
Yeah.
backed up. So
Yeah.
if they can do 5, you're looking at basically like 3 cycles of that, which is where hopefully in about 2 years, it's cycle through this and get into a normal run rate, a much lower level every year. And the ancillary part, be safer for the kids.
And we're buying 7, 8 years on these vans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
does it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, ultimately to get us out of the hole that we're in, or get them out of the hole that they're in, we're going to have to continue it. And even further than that, we identified, just doing some numbers, Kimmy and myself, Mrs. Pethko and myself, they need to have a budget for vehicles of somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000, which will ultimately give them, moving forward, once we get out of the hole, moving forward, buying 3 to 4 vehicles a year. And that's at current prices. I can't tell you what the new prices are going to be. There's a lot of speculation. A lot of people, say that the tariffs and everything else, and I'm just going to wait and see what all that is. I'm not going to bank on it. But right now, what it looks like is we need 150 to 200,000 moving forward, and it's going to be a long roll, but just to get them out. And the other option was come back and look for $400,000, and that's not going to happen either. So we had to do something.
We used to have the 1% account where there was 400,000 left over. Then we could apply to capital item from the Board of Education.
Board of Education they changed the law. They bumped the number to 2%, but it's at the discretion of the board. They don't have to come.
I understand that, but I want to send a note for them.
Oh,
Not later in, let
I
us
think
know.
it's worth having the conversation with the president and with the board itself.
Because now it comes down to who is this benefiting if we're paying $200,000 a year for vans when they say yes, it's cheaper for transportation for them, but the town's eating it on the other side. They have a transportation budget, but we're buying vans for the transportation. Town is paying for the vans and they have the transportation budget, they're paying for the drivers. I don't see that we're saving as much as we think we are. The Board of Ed will tell you they're saving money on it. Yes, I understand that. Because they're only paying for the drivers. They don't have to buy the vans.
You could take that into consideration when you determine the number, how they would spread the number, but that's how you would do it is based on the number you ultimately give to the Board of Ed, you could factor that in if you consider that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way you can do it is, because your vans are always gonna end up on the town side. You will know they're going to buy the van. And if there is that savings, you could consider, I don't know what that number would be, but that could be a conversation with the Board of Ed. More like
Maybe they
Brian
need to look at
actually.
their contracts for transportation again.
I just want to say, I dealt with a little of that in Portland, and a few years back, the superintendent decided to outsource transportation. And they saw a significant increase by doing so. And now they're backpedaling and now they're buying more vans because of it. So there's no win on that sometimes.
But we're not employing the drivers though.
Mhm.
We're paying the transportation drivers, so it's kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes. I don't know.
Are we paying for insurance? Let's say the driver of NBT crashes our van. Where's the liability?
It's gonna be that.
It's be with them. So they insure our vans.
They also, we actually just had this discussion with them last month. They actually do the motor vehicle background checks and other things on the drivers to ensure that the drivers don't have a bad driving record and other things like that. And they provide a certificate of insurance to the Board of Ed, proving that they have insurance and that they're covering it.
So criminal, medical, they do all those, the background check.
Well, they would do all of those. I was just the driver's license piece that they don't have a history of DUI or roll over someone or something.
I did send I'll forward it to you guys, but I did send an email to the Board of Ed. There's maybe a dozen items in this other categories that have like 200% increases, 80%, high dollar ones. So I'm asking for an explanation. I'll forward that email to you. And then I also asked for, I know it's small, but their FTEs went up by one. I was curious, what's that one FTE increase for? From FY.
It's in their unaffiliated
I
category.
want to know what it was. So,
It was kind of a brief, it's non-union employees.
I didn't really.
I mean, I just asked, I just asked what position it was.
Or something to that effect.
I have this.
No, they're in this labor union. All the caps, they're union. I forgot what it
All right.
It was very vague.
Jerry has a question.
I just wanted to go back to sales, sheet on the, BHS reimbursement stuff. Just thinking long-term here, we're making budget decisions based on this, but it's the council that really has to come up with the initial appropriation of how that's gonna be used. Right? In addition, the VHS money, when we take it out of the capital project, it has to be appropriated to certain items. And it would be, according to the charter, they go first. We get it second. So I think we need some buy-in before we make too many leaps, to say this is what's gonna happen. We don't know if that's what they're gonna do with it. Maybe we can make recommendations, but we have a certain time frame here in the next 2 weeks that we have to get some commitments. Otherwise, if it's not gonna go that way and they have a totally different idea of where this is going.
Well,
we need to-
an option that you do have would be, if we come back Monday with the priority list and determine like, what is that list? That can go forward to the council, they can appropriate it, and then you can take it out of the budget completely. And this money's there, you wouldn't put it in the budget and appropriate it, you would take these items out. You would do a separate non-budget appropriation, and that would come to you through a regular meeting in this year, and it would just go forward.
I'm just thinking if they had some idea that, no, I want the whole 2 million to go towards our HVAC projects or something, something different. then we'd be at a problem spot.
That's excellent point.
Do you think it's worth adding to the 18th agenda to have the council speak to it, or?
Yeah, 18th is the next meeting.
Put an item on the agenda for
Yeah.
what the council thinks are the
Yeah.
priorities of.
And maybe based on our Monday meeting, we can say, this would be our suggestions for.
I don't think, the whole council even know the 2.6 million is,
Yeah.
did we tell, you told them this week?
Yeah,
Last
that,
week.
that was this week.
You told them this week, yeah, okay, we just heard it, yeah.
And I know Mark and Charlie were on the call. I'm not sure if anybody else was by the time we went to share video, but they were both on the call Monday to hear the presentation. So there definitely were some members.
Yeah, some I heard, I mean, I heard
And,
it also, but I didn't know if
from the
everybody heard
Sarah
it. But you're right, Brian, you didn't tell them. You said it.
Yeah, that was Tuesday night. You
Yeah,
mentioned it.
yeah, Tuesday night you mentioned it, yeah, so, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't really have any.
But I think either way, both the council and you will want to know the priority ranking of everything. So that'll be helpful. And we'll get that for you on Monday, and then we can also bring that to the council as well.
Yeah, we can make recommendations, they can adjust.
Do you have any other questions, budget questions specifically? Anybody may have, because I figured we just go through this for now, and then on Monday we start.
Yeah.
Knocking things out. Of course, the Board of Education is gonna be a big thing again. And I'm still, I want to try to do the right thing, but sometimes the numbers don't make sense. I'm gonna cut these head count, whatever, and the head count looks flat. So where's it, every time I hear something that we're gonna knock them down, I gotta cut people, and people don't get cut. I mean, there may be a mix issue, but look at that head count chart that they presented, it's all flat. And so how do I know? I have mixed emotions on what the right number is. What the right number is.
I know last year they did lose one, one administrator.
That was, yeah, that
And then
was the only, the paraprofessional part is, yeah, the
The upbeat
paraprofessional.
coordinator was also eliminated and they shared that responsibility with others, but I don't know any other.
But I want to give them a fair budget, every year I've been told that I have to make personnel cuts because I'm not getting my requested budget. Then we give them an approved budget and then there's surplus. This chart here tells it to me right away. This is what they've asked for, this line here. This is what we approve, and every year there's a surplus, every year. Could be, now there's some interpretation of how much of the open choices, is in there, but there's real surplus in expenditures too. So how do I determine, what I do next? You know what I'm saying? I'd be glad to pass this chart on. I read it for everyone. But I'm struggling with it, to be honest.
This is a lot of expensive paper.
This is
It's a good stuff.
Nice paper.
This was not printed by the town. This is like, it's not what we use. Everything is recycled with the town.
Well, what happened is I did go to Staples.
Which are all fine.
A full boat.
I spent my own money.
I mean, I've worked for 5 budgets now, that if they don't get what they want, we gotta cut services, we gotta cut sports.
But we'll have a lot of conversations,
So this is the requested, this is what we gave them. Oh, that's a surplus.
I have a whole bunch. I know I didn't. Well, this, the difference between here and here is.
This line.
Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah, these are.
You know, Sal, the other one that's kind of like shocks you a little bit too, is they always have that line on it that says, this is the absolute contractual obligation. So we're asking for 6, but just to meet our contractual obligations or whatever, it's 4, and then you give them 2.
And you always have a surplus.
Let's say, what was the number? For contractual to get 1 thing.
4 point something. So we're not doing any of the individual budgets tonight.
We can do a Monday for now. I had a couple of questions. or, you know,
Yeah, because our meeting is Tuesday,
the
right?
annual report you want?
Our normal meeting is Tuesday?
Mhm.
Yes. Can we have the last quarter numbers?
Our meeting is Tuesday. Last, yes. and
Monday,
last-
Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Yeah, last year, since we had a very short agenda for our regular meeting, we scheduled that day to be a budget meeting too. Would he have to notice it
I
or
did.
something? You did.
I actually emailed all of you,
Uh,
guys noticed that.
uh,
I put it on the end so you could
Yeah.
talk about it or not. And it is once again a pretty short agenda
For Tuesday.
for Tuesday. That way you have,
Can I
I mean, it's a
ask
regular.
some
meeting, so you have-
random questions? Or do we want to, does everybody want? And the transfer is part of the budget, that lease liability. The big electrical lease, right? Is there any possibility of, renegotiating the rate, refunding it, or?
It could be retired, but, I mean, it's a 2%
Oh, it's
interest rate.
2%.
Yeah, we'd be higher right now.
Right.
We're halfway through, so you are flipping to the downside now.
Another 6 million to go.
So we have 10 years left on the 20-year lease. Unfortunately, that lease was written with escalating principal payments rather than typically declining. So
Okay, police extra duty revenue. Okay, that's offset by some line in the police budget.
extra duty is all in a different fund. It's no
Oh,
longer
you
in the
have a
general.
separate
The budget you see in there is the cost of waived extra duty police
Okay.
services.
All right, so
So
it's
where
not
the
the
council
old,
will waive.
it's not the old one. Okay.
And that money is now sitting in a separate fund, and you approved the transfer of 150,000 back in the vehicles in capital non-recurring, which they use, to take advantage of the truck, and they're trying to buy some more vehicles. We're trying to use it to recycle it, reuse for, vehicles.
On the revenue side still, just keep it out of the expenditure. Ryan, your budget made a change in building inspection fees. You increased the budget by 100,000. What did you take into consideration that was not being considered before?
Sure, I spoke, both, Frank was out, but John and then Frank, as far as the projections, what do they see for permits coming in? I mean, I know we've been busy. Kevin and I looked at the past, few years to see, what the trend has been. We're over $1 million, I think, in the last 2 years of permit revenue coming in, or permit fees coming into the town. So it seemed to me like we could go up without, but I didn't push too much because you want to hedge a little bit. But I thought that that was a safe number that we fiscal 26. You could probably, go up a little bit more. Kevin, I think floated the idea, and I said, I'm the new guy. I don't want to, but you guys could, right? I mean,
You've had some good projects, some will continue. The Orsini project out by Sliders off the turnpike there, that's moving along very quickly. So future building permit revenue is going to be fairly minimal there, which is good because it's coming online. Conversely, the audio property out past Lobster, they're still on one of 5.
2 out of
states.
5.
Yeah.
So 2 out of 5 buildings, and then for the apartments, and then they still have 2 retail buildings they're supposed to do.
Hotel.
The hotel was a phase 4, never, that wasn't hard in the design.
I guess he found a hotel. He
Yes.
found, it's a Hilton.
At the time,
the Marriott.
It's a Marriott something.
Yeah, it's a
well, at the time he came in, said it was the town, he asked the town, what do you think you need in the town? And we told them a hotel. That's during COVID and hotels went to hell in a handbasket, so, but if it's back.
He claimed the other day when I spoke to him,
Okay.
he found the Marriott something.
Wow.
It's a new name for Marriott.
Yeah, I have it.
Right,
right now,
remember
so
he.
I met,
Whatever.
I had a good talk with him the
Hotel
other day.
6.
He's getting close to a CO though on that first.
Well, he's supposed to go 5.
I know. No, I know he's slow, but to Kevin's point, a lot of the projects, you get your permits in the beginning, and he's got more to go. So those,
Hung up big time.
He did,
The
yeah.
state.
Yeah.
And then we do expect Newport to kick in. We heard at the last
Yeah.
council meeting. So we get over the hump of whatever to do with that material. It sounds like they're ready to go up and start doing their piece. And so we would expect things like electrical, plumbing and others to follow as you get the construction piece. So it was a balance. To
Yeah,
try
I
to
wanna
figure
go
out
out
what-
by the end of March, they wanna get it ready to go.
You're gonna start the one behind the Tyvek building pretty soon.
Most of the.
Got 8 units
No,
back
they
there.
were- Yeah, they're gonna get it.
It's a Marriott Town Place. It's an extended stay hotel.
That's
If you've ever been in it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Those repairs.
You
25 years I haven't.
You wouldn't leave your
That didn't
car
go
there.
through.
Because the birds are.
Yeah. They didn't get there.
Too many birds inside the building.
Sorry, Jerry. You have others? I don't.
Yes, health insurance, what did you use for a rate this year?
10%.
Same as last year.
Our broker had run it. His number was 12.5%.
Is that still, because I know they start high and then
Yeah.
it seems to
Does
work
every year.
down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Right now, it's.
The challenge with the high deductible plans is as you start to project out, it's this phase, it's this point in the year when many people start to hit their deductible, and that's when your costs spike. Because once they hit the deductible, you go nuts. So we did talk through that, and we were all okay that 10% is a little lower. He's a little bit conservative. We have solid reserves, so we think 10% is fair, but we don't think there's room on that one.
Check the one on the town managers, because it's a 63% increase on health insurance. I don't know. if
It's because of Roche didn't take health insurance and Ryan does.
Oh, okay.
You should see in lieu of going down to zero.
Reduce the salary.
All right, keep that in mind.
Oh, you didn't tell us that when we hired you. You want health insurance?
Not permitted to based on, whether someone takes health insurance.
Yeah, eat oranges. You're right.
Sorry, but that one kind of stands out since there's only 2 staff there.
You guys are lucky I'm still single.
He did take the high deductible, not the PPO, so it's a lot less than it would have been.
On the, you got a page in the handout about the spending cap, municipal spending cap. And I think you said it's the municipal revenue sharing grant that might be impacted.
Supplement.
Supplemental, okay, so when I read the F, I didn't see.
Can you say that again?
There's a municipal spending cap that the state sets. And if you're over it, they reduce your grant by 50 cents for every dollar you're over the. But I didn't see it to say supplemental grant, I saw it to say the revenue sharing grant.
Well, when that act was first written, there were several different names out there. They've since consolidated
Okay.
a bunch in there.
Okay,
They did away with the municipal restructuring grant and rolled it in. And then they have a supplemental, which when you read it, there's actually 5 tiers. They have like Alliance District funding, motor vehicle cap reimbursement. There's a few things they use with the money. A couple of years ago, we received 509,000 of my memory. Correctly put it towards vehicles, and it was a great. That was the supplemental.
okay,
To the extent we exceed the cap, we would have lost 50 cents for every dollar we're over the cap.
okay, so we have no supplemental budgeting.
No, and OPM always tells us do not. The last couple of years, they haven't come out with it.
Okay, so if we lost it all because of where our spending level is, it's
Yeah.
not getting.
Last
impacted our
year,
budget calculation.
the risk was,
Okay.
we had no risk, but we also then generated no supplemental revenue.
Okay, I was wondering whether the 200 something thousand we had in there for municipal
No.
revenue sharing might be affected.
And we won't know that until, technically by statute, they have to calculate, controller has to calculate it in September. OPM will release it in October after it's been audited, so we will be into the fiscal year, well beyond the budget, so. We really shouldn't be over it,
Yeah.
but this year, that number is very difficult to meet. It's 3.31%.
I can't imagine how we're going to.
When you think about just even a 2.5 or 3% cost of living increase plus steps for many employees, teachers, police have a few steps. It's not dramatic, but many towns, union contracts have steps. You can have people at 5 and 6%. I think last year you had brought up, so these numbers are quite large. Even if if you say 80% is staff, and if you said, 50% of the budget, because some of those are at top step or not step related, even if half your budget's there, and that means if somebody's getting 5 or 6% with step and COLA, you're at 3%. And if you look at electricity, if you look at all the other costs going up, that 3.31 is a very tough number to hit.
Just an observation too that came off of looking at that sheet and it relates to the Board of Education. One of the Board of Education numbers just doesn't make sense. They're saying that their special ed costs were 13.8 million last year and only 13.6 this year, which really seems to me contrary to what we usually think about special ed costs.
I mean, if you're gonna talk to Ashley, I think that's a very valid question. That's critical. She knows this stuff cold.
Yeah.
One of the things that can happen is number or mix of students. We have some special ed students where it might be 10,000, 25,000 extra.
Yeah.
This district has had, I know when I first joined, the former superintendent told the story that it was a few $100,000 for one student
Yeah.
outplacement. It was a
When
significant.
I ordered, when I ordered the town, it was 280,000.
Yeah, so if you had one kid.
Yeah.
Went up to the tank.
And I don't know also what they're assuming in there, if there's any offset from Cromwell. Remember, they're running the transition academy that's required by law and working with, so there's an exchange of some money there. But Ashley would be she's the expert.
You know, it's not impacting this, but it's just one of those reasonability things in their packet. It does say that number. So you use the right number for the table and the calculation from them.
Yeah, I mean, the 13.8 was from Ashley last year and 13.6, so, but yeah, like I said, 1 or 2 students and that number
Yeah.
can come down 100,000 or 200,000
Yeah.
easily.
But I mean, it's not just the kids sent out. It's the special ed costs internal.
About that.
And even those every year, I mean, as salaries are going up.
I'd be fucking tweaking it one side or the other side.
You know,
Little
it's
preload.
hard to, imagine if it's not going up.
It could also be, and I don't know this, she would know it as well, is you could also have a mix of teachers. A teacher who was doing this retired and you brought it
Yeah.
in at a lower
Sure.
step, the cost would
Yeah.
come down.
Yeah.
Or they could decide the kid aged off and all of a sudden they went from having insurance to be
I'll just ask the question.
Yeah, she would be the expert. Should we consider having?
A couple of questions up.
I mean, what you could do is Jerry, I don't know,
Well,
be there
at
by
least
Monday.
What I'm gonna do is Jerry will come up with the questions for me, and
Yeah.
I'll CC him, I'll CC Jerry, we'll send it to Julia.
Yeah.
And we'll get them.
And if you're not satisfied, I can check with Ashley to see if she's available for Wednesday. You can have that as a backup to, if you're not getting the answers, ask her to attend.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna have them earlier, it's better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's up to you guys.
Have them here Monday.
That's up to you guys. I can check.
All
and
right,
see
why
if
don't you
Ashley's
just have them
available.
come?
All right, I'll see if Ashley's available.
I have a question.
Yeah, I mean, because he asked one question, then there's a follow-up question.
Last year, the registrars was a big issue. Is that,
Resolved.
it has been resolved?
Took care of it. Took care of it, yeah.
Why, they're gone? No. So
It's
this
not a
is.
perfect plan, but it's been resolved.
So we don't have to really be as concerned as.
If you look, their budget's down over last
Yeah.
year due to, well, any presidential election year is
Oh, it's
always
bad.
going to peak, and now we have a municipal year, so that things kind of come back down. It'll probably go up a little next year for the gubernatorial, but that's just kind of
Okay,
the way
so
it
I'm not
goes.
gonna look for problems, but I know that that was a big issue.
I'm not gonna look. It's
I'll round that one. Let me see, because I know I have a question.
All right.
Well, I just remember it was very.
Did we carry some money over? Did we? That part of you?
No, they got a
We started
stipend,
working it out with their budget with them and with the.
so they're happy though.
Yes. There was some stipend.
Yeah, stipend.
You might be seeing that on Tuesday.
Oh, really?
Jerry's been always much.
Yeah, it was.
They're relatively happy. let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
all right.
Yeah. But they got some increase and they got a stipend.
I don't think everyone is happy.
I think
so
it was pretty
that's
fair.
a win, right?
Yeah,
That's a
pretty
win.
fair.
Yeah, that's right.
We-
That's
we-
right. Both sides are right.
If nobody's happy, you're in just the right spot.
That's us next month.
In the right spot.
Okay, that's one of the ones, all right, because on the registrars, they asked for a personnel budget of 204, you reduced it to 142. Okay. Okay, that's,
That, I don't know if that matches the,
well, that's, yeah, see,
Yeah.
that throws me off when I look at your budget summaries and then I look
It's
at the
wages
summaries
plus
for the back.
fringes, personnel is
No,
wages.
No,
plus
no, but
fringes.
you look at the back and this says 189.
That,
total.
the narrative is based on the department submission,
I know,
not based on the
it-
town
But
manager's.
what I was gonna suggest was when there's a change, maybe it shows up on here as town manager change.
In
And
the
if you-
explanation as well.
Yeah, because I get a lot more when I'm doing my review out of the back section where it gives a detail by line.
Yeah, the numbers,
You know.
proposed.
So if it said PM adjustment 42,000, then I wouldn't. Now I'm looking here, I'm finding, I would almost say that this section, your section of this is, to me, it's only good for the full-time equivalents. Because if you look at budget highlights hardly change,
Well, that's still not
or they don't change. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Why bother giving it to us, if you're not gonna.
Yeah.
Is it a highlight every year that,
we can,
he'll deliver high quality service to this,
but it is
in the
worth
office.
talking about, like,
You know.
when it comes to the register, I was talking about, they're getting new polling equipment in this year. I mean, new tabulators, that's a big change. The early voting that they've had,
Yes.
now they've got, Kate's got the no excuse absentee voting that's gonna be coming, so.
Yeah. Well,
so,
I like that kind of stuff. Last year, there were sections in here as prior year highlights, right? That's going, oh, we don't, because we don't need prior year when we're looking at what
Yeah,
we're
you wanna
doing
know
for
what's
this
coming.
year.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to save you time too.
Sure.
I mean, 80% of these budget highlights are the same as what it said last year.
Keep in mind, this document is also used with Standard and Poor's as a marketing tool to promote the AAA rating and the town's status there.
Well,
They actually look at a
Well,
lot
that-
of these documents from other towns because they don't, the person sitting at Standard and Poor's in Boston or New York who's looking at this might be looking at 20 communities in a week.
Yeah.
And they won't know, and they look at a lot of these things partially to read some of them, partially just to flip in and say there's diligence here.
Yeah.
They look at all these things, they talk about all these things, and that lends itself towards the management rating, which is actually the highest piece of their rating. That's part of the reason.
I'm just thinking too, from the perspective where some of them are still talking about 2022. They weren't updated or whatever. It makes it look worse than if you didn't do anything at all.
Some of that's the diligence of the individual
Yeah.
department head.
Yeah. Okay, just my.
Yeah, no.
Because you're
I
new.
wrote- I wrote it
If
down, no,
If you
believe
wanted to change the format, it's up to you. to
I think,
change it,
and, anytime that, if I were to make an adjustment, we can put that in as to why it
Yeah.
didn't go into the
I
details.
think that would be very
That would-
helpful.
That would be
Yeah,
helpful.
no,
for you
to,
guys.
to me, it would be just the two numbers.
Yeah.
Proposed, town managers, I know that.
Yeah,
Too much back and forth right now, I'm trying to figure them out.
yeah, you're trying to, well,
Yeah.
why you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
We are prima donnas.
Good?
Yeah.
Everybody good? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Good, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Kevin.
Yes, sir.
The other day you mentioned somebody made a $60 million